you smiled so sweetly at the wiry farmhands who sat down at the kitchen table at lunchtime behind a wall of piled-up sandwiches, spread with a thick layer of butter and filled with smoke-sliced sausage. But they didn't dare make a move. You were an animal they hadn't learned about in college. You didn't have 4 stomachs. You had just one, which was insatiable, and had known you since you were little. I knew you through and through, even though you were too young to be desired by me, and at the same time, too spirited and impatient to be patronized or handled in a fatherly manner. And I could tell from the way you acted that you wanted to break free from parental authority, from the farm you'd grown up on, which bore the name De Hulst, after W.G. van der Hulst, the writer of Christian children's books, the only writer your father had heard of and whose entire works he'd read. He'd read them to you on good days, making you dream you were a sugared bun, like in the story, whetting everyone's appetite and making them want to take a bite out of you, so that you had to protect your sugary body the whole time from the king, the sweet tooths and ants. And perhaps I should have taken your dream seriously. I realize, now that I write this, even though it was never my intention to write this, I focus mainly on your demeanor, not on your dream, on how you were breaking free, not just from the farm, but also from the cowsheds next to it. There was asbestos in the roofs that your father refused to have seen to because God decided whether you got cancer or not a few old corrugated roofing sheets, and you were also breaking free from him. You wanted to escape God, and at the same time you were afraid of his wrath, of his final judgment, and sometimes in bed you whispered the line from Hymn 118, "Deliver me from all my fears." But most of all you wanted to free yourself from your father, who was gentle but very strict, moody and capricious. You wanted to turn your back on him and at the same time still cherish him, the way you cherished Bully, the surly bull, whom you could only stroke when he'd just eaten or mated with a cow. And sometimes you lent him to other farmers. You'd put the stud fee from each coupling in a jam jar on the chimney breast in the kitchen and use the money to go on holiday. Yes, Bully paid for your holidays to Zeeland and everything your dad gave you there, from sandwich spread to Donald Duck pocketbooks. He'd say, "You should thank Bully for it." And I heard you prying yourself free in the truculent, sullen tone of voice you used when your dad wanted to zip up your overalls. Not to protect you from the chilly morning mist, but to be able to touch you briefly. His child who was fast outgrowing his rough hands, covered in cuts and calluses. And then I'd look at mine, that were big and strong enough to clasp yours tightly. I'd held children's hands before, even though that was different. They clutched at mine, and now I wanted to hold yours. Weave my fingers through yours. On your middle finger you wore a plastic ring with a ladybird that you got from the orthodontist after they told you that you need headgear braces, and you were devastated by the news. They let you pick something from the comfort box, and you chose this ring that was slightly too big. I would circle your palm for hours with my thumb like a ruminant with turning sickness. And I only half listened to your dad's stories during the coffee break. He was like a combination of Mick Jagger and Rutger Hauer when he spoke fervently about his livestock, the drought in the fields and the ditches, that it would be a poor harvest if the umbellifiers were too droopy to be picked and put in a vase. I just nodded along. There wasn't a vase to be seen in the whole farm, and people who never had any flowers or plants in their house were often troubled by worries of poor harvests, even when it was a good, fertile season. And I nodded again when he told me that cattle liked a monotonous diet, that they were creatures of habit, just like he was, and that he sometimes played classical music to them, Chopin or Vivaldi, which gave the milk in the evening a creamier taste. I creased my face into a smile at the right moment, but I would have preferred to have heard everything about you. I wanted to discuss you the way we discussed the cows, their estrus, and their changeable natures. And I looked at the lawn where you and your brother were jumping on the trampoline, playing who could touch heaven first. Who would be the first to...